Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. This is the big match preview. My name is Louis Mendes. Hope you're all very well on this Thursday evening. On tonight's show, then we'll be gearing up for Saturday's home game with Rotherham United, which is going ahead, as you can tell by the fact we're here. I promised on Sunday that if the game did go ahead, we'll crack on with the shows, and that's why we're here. They've decided not to take the international break off. We are playing the Millers at the Valley this Saturday. So joining me to gear up to that game, plus talk about much, much more. First up, top right, is Mr. Tom Walling. Tom, I see you've taken off that unlucky yellow shirt now.
For now. It'll be back on Saturday.
But, so it lost its good luck charm at Reading, didn't it? So I'm surprised you didn't just burn it. Which is a shame.
Yeah. Not yet, but let's see what happens this weekend.
Yeah, excellent. Well, man, who you'll be pleased to hear managed to change his shirt a few moments ago off air, but we got an eyeful whilst he was doing so. It's Mark Newbury. How you doing, Mark?
I'm surprised you've managed to calm yourself down, mate. It was a bit of a moment, wasn't it? So
I'm surprised I managed to get on air after I've seen stuff that no one should ever see. I'll put it that way. Good to have you.
You weren't expecting those piercings, were you?
No, I weren't. No, the tattoo was an unwelcome sight. So on this evening's show, as I said, we'll be gearing up for the home game with Rotherham, but plenty more to talk about as well. We're going to hear from the Addicts boss Nathan Jones firstly on what would appear to be the impending arrival of Dan Potts. He was asked about Dan earlier on today, and it's one of those denials that makes it sound like he is coming in. Plus, Richard Corley has confirmed he's expecting the deal to go until January, so we'll hear about him shortly. We're going to discuss, of course, how the players will have reacted to that dressing down they got after the game at Reading on Saturday. We're going to hear from Alan Campbell, just a brief snippet of his interview that he did with the club earlier on this week. And as I said, we'll look ahead to Rotherham. We're going to hear from Matt from the New York Talk pod, and we'll hear from Nathan Jones once more, gearing up for Saturday's game with the Millers. Want to hear from everyone in the chat as well. Good evening to everyone who's joining us live on YouTube. All hell let loose says, evening lads. How many managers are either going to be yellow carded or sent off on Saturday? Either one or two. It's certainly going to be fiery on the touchline, I imagine. There's apparently quite a good relationship between Evans and Jones. They had a bit of a falling out one game, but they actually quite respect each other. So hopefully they'll throw that out the window for some entertainment on Saturday. But yeah, Gary says he can see both being sent off. Andrew, good evening to you. Aaron says up the Charlton Live. So yeah, hello to everyone in the chat. Sam's in there, Joseph's in there, Dudley and Tom as well. Anthony, yeah, let us know your thoughts ahead of Saturday's game. Let us know what you think about the impending arrival of Dan Potts as well. Well, let's hear about that then. So we all know that Dan was on trial with us in pre-season. The rumours started hotting up over the last couple of days that he was about to sign on the dotted line. So Nick Godwin from BBC Radio London was down at the training ground today and asked that very question to the Addicts boss and Nathan Jones.
Dan Potts, is he someone that you might be bringing in?
Look, we'll have announcements on that in terms of things. But what I like to do, I love working with young players and developing them and making them better and giving them opportunity because they like blank canvases, so you can really get into players like that. I also like players that are really ready-made and people that have come in and have done really well at the level. And then I love people that I've worked with that have done things for me that at one stage they were either young or were a bit more established and not my signings example. But anyone we bring in has to either be better, considerably better than what we've got, different, or just can implement quickly what we want to do. And Dan and people that I've worked with before are able to do that. And, we haven't gone gung-ho with ex-players, for example, but we've brought in real sensible ones and players I've worked with before. And, in people like Lloyd Jones I worked with before, and I saw something in Lloyd a while back, and he's maturing now into a wonderful player. Luke Berry I've worked with, Alan Campbell. These are people that have won promotions, one for me, but two from a previous club and previous environment. And then Dan is another one that fits into that, who's had a wonderful journey, who's played in the Premier League, played in playoff finals, scored penalty in the winning final, and who did fantastically well for me. So he's been around, we've had a look at him, and there'll be a decision on him in days.
And presumably when you bring in those type of players, it helps to achieve all the other things that you've already set out earlier in the conversation, all this stuff that you're trying to bring up. These are the bits of the jigsaw that help. Absolutely.
And look, and providing they can still contribute, because, you don't just want to bring in tokens and they can contribute. They can also help they work as catalysts for the environment and the culture to move forward quickly, but they help others as well. I wouldn't bring Dan Potts in if he wasn't a real example in terms of how he goes about his work, how he trains, how he does stuff. He wasn't a leader in the changing room and so on. Same with Luke Berry, Alan Campbell, or how they train, how they act. They enhance our environment, and that's coupled with a wonderful group anyway. So look, the group's in a good place. We want to, we know we can't compete with certain things at this level, so we want to do some things that make sure that the club continues to move forward.
There we go. That is Nathan Jones speaking to Nick Godwin earlier on today about Dan Potts. So 30 years old, Tom. Obviously, someone that Nathan has worked with before and had another look at him during pre-season. Sort of left-sided centre half. So would appear to be the competition for Macaulay Gillespie. What are you making of his impending arrival?
We might as well just call ourselves Luton, mightn't we, by this stage? Considering, well, despite Nathan Jones saying he hasn't raided his old club, I'm not going to claim to know a lot about him, but he's obviously played a lot of games for Luton. I think it's nearly 200 games he had for them, but I don't think he played at all in that Premier League campaign, didn't go on loan anywhere else. So obviously in terms of match fitness, that might take a while. But I think I don't think I was on a show after the transfer window closed, but certainly in this sort of lead up to it, I said I was still a bit concerned about that left side of defence. I think Gillespie has done very well and surprised, I think, a lot of us so far this season. But how long will that last? And as you say, let's put a bit of pressure on him because there's nobody else there. And same at left back, obviously with the injury to Edwards so early on. If he's able to push out there across a 5 as well, then it just gives us a bit more flexibility in that defence. I think that was the only place really in the squad. I think possibly another wide attacking player, although I don't really know if that fits the 5-3-2 that we tend to play that we were missing. So he's an experienced player that's going to come in and add some strength to that, very similar to the Alan Campbell signing. These are players that are going to add squad depth and hopefully not reduce the quality that we've got. So I think now it's about trying to get them up to speed. If we've got any Pupper Paint Trophy games coming up, they can get a run out in that. Let's see where they fit in. I don't think Jones is one to change his starting 11 too much unless he has to, and I'm sure we'll come on to that, particularly in striker positions looking ahead to the Rotherham game. But it's not one that I'm going, what have we bothered with that for? It's one that I'm thinking, okay, there seems to be a bit of strength there, and if Nathan trusts him, then that's good enough for me.
Rostos says it's another Luton boy, Luton Athletic. Brazilian saying there's a rumour we're going to be playing in an orange home kit next season because of that. As Alan points out, we used to do this with Swindon as well, so it's not the first time this sort of thing has happened, that we started picking up a load of players from a previous club of a manager. But when it's a previous club that's done as well as Luton did with Nathan Jones, Mark, I guess that's not necessarily a bad thing, and it will bring competition to that part of the pitch. I mean, Tom from Charlton Chronicles says Gillespie has been the most improved so far for me, but definitely personally need that depth around that area of the pitch as well. I mean, that is probably what lies, as Tom Walling said, that is probably one of the areas that we do need more backup in.
Yeah, and like Tom rightly said, we don't know how long before Edwards is going to be back on that side, so he can play left back as well. Yeah, left side is centre defence. Look, Nathan obviously knows him. He's gone for a different type of character, I think, this year. I think that's been quite noticeable. I mean, especially with Campbell as well last week. Yes, his ex-players, but his trust is a big thing in football. And if he's looked at players and he thought to himself, you're okay, but can I trust you to be consistent for 30 games, 40 games? And I don't feel I have that. He has to look somewhere else. I mean, looking at his stats, he's got almost like Purrington stats, a kind of like from, a 7 out of 10 player week in, week out. And maybe we've been missing that. We certainly missed it last season, having that dependability. So if Nathan wants him and he feels he can improve the squad, it's not going to be a bad thing per se, because we don't have anyone of the youngers, knocking on the door, looking to blow our socks off. I like Jones, I like Alex Mitchell, and Gillespie hasn't done badly, I'd say, overall in the games we've played, but having that competition on that side, because obviously Reg can come in on the other side of the centre halves. So defensively, we are looking good. I just think I'd have liked another attacking wing player. I know we got the young lad from Jamaica, but I would have liked another out-and-out winger type, not a floater. So, but, we'll see what else he picks up in the next week or two, because there's still going to be looking at people who are out of contract. And I know there's been names thrown in and around. So, we'll trust him. I don't think he's going to come in and start kicking in his own net. So that'll be a bonus.
If he scores an own goal on his first game now, Mark, I'm holding you personally
me.
responsible. Natalie's just tweeted saying, I hope Dan Potts in doesn't mean Zach Mitchell out, but I know Potts is left centre-back and Zach right, but I prefer Zach over Reg. So, yeah, Zach Mitchell obviously more in and around it this year, we're expecting as well. Dan Gers saying that Potts would be a good signing. I think that the left centre-back is the one that we've been lacking in. Also, it's been rumoured a second signing as well. Any ideas? So, yeah, there is rumours of a second one. Again, Richard sort of followed up with he thinks that's to be the case, but I'm not really sure at this moment in time who that is. So it might actually be a nice surprise. All hell let loose saying, what are the odds we sign Louis Watson on a short-term contract? It depends how short-term you're talking. If you're talking about 0 minutes, then there's a possibly we might sign him on that one. But yeah, I'd be very surprised if anything happened in that regard. I mean, in terms of the one extra, Tom, so without knowing who it is or where it is, we are guessing. But I mean, if there was a part of the pitch, would it be the goalkeeper that you'd want to go for? That's what Andrew's saying. Another winger and a goalkeeper needed, which would be your pick.
Yeah, I think I'd go goalkeeper. A bit like what Mark said, really, and I think I said previously. I understand that we haven't got a lot of wingers. I just don't know necessarily if we have more how often they're going to play. I don't know how often he's going to change his style. Obviously, TC's been forced to play a bit more centrally. Maybe you get someone who's kind of a fast forward, but I think we're pretty well stocked up there at the moment. So, yeah, goalkeeper would probably be the preference. Obviously, Mannion didn't have the best of games on Saturday, but prior to that, although he hadn't had a lot to do, had obviously kept 3 clean sheets. The only other place really I can think of is midfield. The only midfield change we've really made at any point is the whole Anderson-Berry swap. And I wonder if that's just because there isn't really the depth beyond that. Obviously, Terry Taylor, Scott Fraser aren't in plans, have gone, whatever. So, yeah, maybe somebody else in the centre of midfield to try and bolster that, or as I say, a goalkeeper. So that's where I'd be looking. It's probably what Nathan Jones is thinking. But, yeah, without knowing, obviously, we'll have to wait and see.
Excellent stuff. Right, a few comments in the chat. Hi to Brands, by the way, who says love it up the Charlton. Just worth checking out his YouTube channel. He started doing the little vlogs on the games, and he got a really good shot of the goal that Doherty scored against Bolton. So definitely worth checking out his channel if you get a chance. And yeah, quite a lot of chat earlier on about bouncing back. I mean, Anthony saying roll on Saturday, let's get back on track. George saying praying that we can bounce back after Saturday, another statement win is needed. And Joseph saying excited to see us bounce back at the Valley. Charlton's home form has been solid lately, with Rotherham struggling on the road. I'm for a win. I think bouncing back is what we're going to need to see after the result against Saturday. Now, of course, anyone who listened to Sunday's show or saw the interview with the Addicts boss on Twitter that Terry did last week will see that he wasn't massively happy after the defeat at Reading. So he'll expect the side to bounce back. And Nick earlier on spoke to him and asked him how the squad sort of reacted to that telling off they got after the defeat over at Reading.
The Reading game, and you communicated that afterwards. I imagine that you probably let the players know as well. Have you seen this week a response to what you had to say post match?
Oh, this is a great group, and they know what we debrief today. We debrief every Thursday before we do our tactical work, and this is a group that want to do well. So it's not about chastising them; it's about educating them. And we knew there's a few tactical things we needed to do better first off, and if we had, then this group will implement that. So it was twofold. So I wasn't just angry with the players or angry with certain. I was angry at the time with myself and the whole situation. And then second off, when we did really step on, one, we got let down by a decision. Two, we weren't clinical enough in the final third. And then they opened the scoring with a fantastic strike. Let's not take anything away from that. The thing that disappoints me is the second one, because then it gives the opposition not on edge then when there's two, and that's the disappointing. That was the icing on the disappointing cake that we created on the weekend.
I know you haven't got a pause, but can you kind of evaluate the work you've done so far this season at this point? How happy are you? Has it gone as you expected? Are there things that haven't necessarily gone as you would expect?
I think we would have taken 3 from 4. If you keep doing 3 from 4, then you're going to be in a wonderful position. So let's not forget that. We have a goal setting thing every 5 games. We're on target for that. So that's all you can do. Sometimes you have games that you don't believe you should lose, that you do lose. Sometimes you win games that you probably nicked, and sometimes you just get what you deserve. So as long as you keep hitting your targets, that's all we can do. So it's no point dwelling on a negative when that then can contribute to the next game. So what we have to do is we have to learn from whatever went wrong on Saturday at Reading, and then try to put that right at home at the Valley.
There you go. That's Nathan Jones on reacting to the game over at Reading. How do you think the players would have been on the training ground this week, Tom, after what happened last weekend and the way the manager came out?
Yeah, it'll be interesting, won't it? I'd love to know what he said to them in the dressing room, because I obviously listened to the show on Sunday and the debate about whether he's gone way over the top or whether it just shows passion, and it's probably a bit of both, right? He's got that reputation as being a bit of a funny character, and obviously those who don't pay that much attention to the lower leagues and focus on his time at Southampton kind of ridicule him for that. But he's got a proven track record of also being very successful, and he has high expectations, which I don't think is a bad thing. So I'd like to think he's got a group of players there this season that probably react well to that. I think Doherty, whilst not maybe the most vocal on the pitch, I think kind of will probably fall into line with that messaging as well. So I think between them, they'll probably sort of band together and sort this out. I don't think it'll be like previous squads we've had, even just as soon as last season, where I would imagine they would react badly to that and look to try and turn it on the manager and not really perform. So look, I don't know any of the players personally, but I'd like to think that from what I've seen on the pitch, they're probably going to regroup well, get that structure back in them. It's good that we're back at home. I think that will help, having the crowd behind them. You'd imagine it's going to be one of those games that can get quite heated. We're all well aware who the manager is in the other dugout, and obviously if they're going to try and drag us into the gutter, then that could spice things up as well and bring the crowd into the game. So yeah, I'm really excited for Saturday at the moment. I always try and find the positives in performances, even when we lose. And obviously Reading was a disappointing day out for us, but I get the feeling they'll probably react well. Now, if we lose 2 or 3 in a trot and he comes out saying that every time, it's not going to have the same impact. But that's the first proper defeat really. I'm not going to count the Birmingham one in the cup. He was obviously not happy with it. Let's see how he reacts next time we lose, if we do. And he's right. You want sort of just over 2 points a game, don't you, on average, if you want to push for promotion. And we've got 9 from the 4 games, so we're kind of on the way towards that. So yeah, I don't think we can get too down after one defeat. If we'd have lost the first game and won the next 3, we'd probably be pretty comfortable and pretty happy with things. So, yeah, I'm thinking they'll bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, Tom's saying the one thing I liked about Jones is that he says it how it is and he doesn't beat around the bush. Also keeps everyone in the loop in terms of how he feels about the team and the performance. I mean, Nick asked the Addicts boss there, Mark, about the start to the season, because I think when you put it in context as a whole, the first month of the campaign now has been and gone, August, and we have won 3 out of 4. You still have to look at it as a pretty positive start, and I'm feeling pretty positive about where we are. Obviously, things could change quite quickly on Saturday, I guess, but overall, it's still not been a bad start, has it?
No, it hasn't. I mean, I think you'd be foolish to think otherwise. Even the way the man of the goals came, Wigan, just a 1-0, but it was a great defensive performance. Orient, from potentially, losing one of your better players early on, we ground them down. And then Bolton, you look at the Bolton game, we made Bolton look very average. So, Reading, yeah, and I understand Jones's anger as such. And like I'd said in the group, I think if I'd been a player, I'd have said, no, I won't bother with a coach, thanks. I think I'll just walk home from Reading. But, he'll also calm down and look at it, properly, as he said, and analyse it. And like I said, there are things he should have put out messages first, and there are things the player should have done, and very aware of that. And I agree with Tom. We probably won't see that mistake again this season. And because defensively we have looked good. And yeah, Savage's goal, questions were asked about Mannion's starting position. It was a very good close strike. When it's that close to the post, the second one, I agree with Nathan. It's one which we deserved to concede that goal for the way we reacted to not getting the throw and not switching on. That was always going to happen. And you're right. You're happy with 9 points out of 12, and the way things are looking. You think, with Leeburn coming back, which I think we'll probably might talk about later on in the show. No. He's now fit after the transfer window closes, which was a lovely coincidence. So no one's going to come and sniff around him for at least another few months. And it is like having a new player, and we know what he can bring to the team. So, yeah, I think sometimes a kick up the bum. And when you've got players like Mitchell, and I really like Mitchell at the back, he's a real kind of like Piercy defender. He's talking, he's organising, and it looks like it means something. And Doherty, I know what Tom means when he talks about him sort of like not being as vocal, but I think he does show quite a lot of leadership on the pitch. So I think we do look a different team than we did last season, and I think that's only just going to be a positive.
Yeah, Darren's saying this team is completely different to last year, and finally there is something about this team that can go on to do something special. Come on, you Reds, and as Sam points out, this time last season Holden was sacked, so clearly a massive improvement as well. Interesting point. And Sue's made a really good point. We're talking about how the players will feel about the dressing down, I guess you could put it, or the anger that the manager showed in the press afterwards. But Sue points out that players continue to sign for him, having already played for him, and there's a reason for that. So these players will know his methods. They would have been on the receiving end or something like that before if they'd lost a game, or if they dropped below standards, and they're still happy to sign for him. So clearly, there's something that the players can get behind and enjoy getting behind there. We did have a decision to make at the start of this week, obviously, Tom. I've never seen it go this long before. This is where we find out is up to 5 days before that you can call the game off. So imagine if you're a Rotherham fan, you didn't know up until 5 days before, especially if, like me, for a couple of games last season, you forgot and then bought train tickets, and then that late it can get cancelled. But it's going ahead, which is good news, obviously, for Rotherham fans, good news for ourselves. But we did have the option to call it off because we had Kaheem Dixon out. We're going to be without Dan Carney. We're going to be without Karoy Anderson this Saturday. So there are 3 players who have been called up. So if we wanted to, we could call it off, but we decided not to. What would you make of that decision? Obviously, effectively, 2 of those players would have likely been on the bench this weekend, and we'll be doing without those. So is it a gamble, or is it just a way to try and make sure we don't get that fixture congestion and to try and keep the momentum that we've picked up at the start of this season?
Yeah, those two for me. I think you try and bounce back from a defeat as soon as you can. You get back on the horse or back on the bike. I think definitely the fixture congestion. I think crowds are usually lower on a Tuesday night, particularly as you get into the winter and the nights get longer. And Jones is not one I would ever think to try and take his foot off the brake. So I think he's just going to want to try and basically get on with that. Rotherham haven't started well, but obviously they did get a win last time out. If they start to win 5 or 6 in a row and then we have to play them, then that changes things as well. Campbell's obviously in, so presuming he's now kind of up and running, he can sort of slot in for the Anderson thing. And with Kanu, obviously it's nice to have that option off the bench. And again, I'm sure we'll have the striker conversation later in the show, but we have still got Chucks. I don't know. We've still got Godden. I don't know whether Leeburn is kind of ready to be risked yet, but I know he's back in training. So we've got options up there as well. So for me, it's totally the right decision. And as I say, when you come off a defeat like that and you're as cross as Nathan Jones is, he's just thinking, right, I just want to get playing again as soon as I can. So this game can't come quickly enough, I'm sure, for him. And you're right, it obviously doesn't bother us in that it's at home, although obviously I appreciate some people travel for home games too. But if I was a Rotherham fan and we called it off on a Monday or Tuesday, I'd be raging. So from that point of view, we've done the good thing, although it'd be fun to wind Steve Evans up and call it off as late as we could. But yeah, I think for us, it's let's go ahead and try and get that win and bounce back as soon as we can.
We had that IT situation this week that, judging by the way it was worded by the club, it sounds like it could have. Well, they said it's going to be fine, but I don't know. If all the big screens went down and we had to not have the game, that would have been marginally funny just to wind up Steve Evans for that. But Trevor says Nathan's outburst has brought too much attention to the defeat at Reading. That's the way it was going to be. I mean, Richard emailed us actually during the week saying he's passionate and he cares. That's great, and that's what supporters want. But there is a thin line between passion and being emotionally unstable. The psychology of elite high performance, success, and leadership is delicate. If it was easy, everyone would do it. I hope that Nathan has the ability to self-reflect and even develop his style for his own well-being. Most importantly, and that was Richard's views on the post-match against Reading the other day. James says, we've got a big squad. It's best to try and get momentum back. Kanu's the only possible one out of the 3 that we might miss at the moment for the game against Rotherham. And Sam says, we've got just one game without them. We have a good squad. I'm sure we can manage without them. Well, we have added to that squad over the last couple of weeks, of course. Remember, Alan Campbell joined at the start of last week. He spoke to the club the other day and was asked about his chance to finally get his first game at the Valley.
Played at the Valley before, so you get your first taste of it this weekend. How much are you looking forward to that?
I'm all looking forward to it. I've heard a lot of people speak about the fans, the atmosphere, and I think we want to make it a fortress this year. So it's been a good start to the season home-wise. So I'm looking forward to get going on Saturday, and hopefully we can carry that on.
How much do you thrive from the fan support as a player?
I love it. Somebody that plays on the edge, so having that support behind you just gives you that extra wee couple of percents, and that's what you need in football. And I'm sure they'll be there on the full voice and pushing the team on to get a result.
And as we said, newly relegated Rotherham visit on Saturday. What can we expect from them?
It'll be a tough game, as always. Obviously, I don't think they started the best, but they got a positive result at the weekend. And we need to bounce back for our results. So now we just need to focus on us and make sure that we perform better than what we did at the weekend and get back to winning ways.
There you go. That's Alan Campbell then ahead of Saturday's game. He spoke about the fans at the Valley. Tom, it's something we've spoken about a fair bit so far this season because obviously the fact we've won games has really helped the atmosphere. A few people have mentioned they didn't think the atmosphere was great away at Reading on Saturday, although that might partly come down to the fact that the first half was a little bit flat in terms of us going forward, even if we did have a couple of decent chances. But how important could our home form be this season, considering we've won our first 2, we're looking strong at home. We like to try and think of the Valley as a bit of a fortress when we have a good season, but too often it's not been over the years.
It's vital. It's vital. If you're going to get promoted, you need a good home record. And Reading's funny in it because it's got the 2 sets of kind of loud fans both next to each other as well. I don't know. It's just a weird atmosphere. I've been there a few times now, and I don't really understand it, but the performance on the pitch wasn't that much to shout about either. I thought we did well enough to try and get behind the team, particularly in that early part of that second half when we were attacking towards that end, but just wasn't to be. So Yeah, I think home advantage potentially is huge. I think we spoke about how loud it was for the first game. That must have been the Orient game, wasn't it? I think, and it was still pretty good for Bolton as well. So yeah, we've got to try and make it as strong as we can, because again, thinking back to that kind of 2 point whatever average, if you can be winning most of your home games, then that means you only really need to get a draw when you're away from home. So yeah, we have to. I can't imagine there's many teams that get promoted from this league without having a strong home record. And of course, we're going to lose the odd game here and there. But if that's kind of the exception, then that proves the rule. I guess that shows that we are a good home side. So yeah, I think the atmosphere's provided we keep winning. And as I say, if and when we do get a point or we lose, that we don't. People don't just give up straight away. I can see crowds starting to slowly grow, and the atmosphere has been great those first few games.
I mean, obviously, the attraction of the Valley is apparently very strong. I don't know if you've seen this story this week, Mark, about Wasps, the rugby side, potentially wanting to reform and come into play at the Valley. For what it's worth, someone mentioned to me today that the stories out there might be a little bit overblown and that it's unlikely they'd come and play at the Valley in the second tier, so that there might not be much to it. But if they were, would you be up for that? So we had the was it the Broncos played with us a couple of times, but are you for or against having some egg chasers on our hallowed turf?
Well, the thing is, it's slightly different because Wasps are Union side and Broncos are league side, and the league game is played more on the pitch without digging holes into it, as it were. And it seems strange that we'd spend money on putting a brand new surface in and then let someone say, oh, yeah, we can play some rugby on it. I don't think it'll happen. It may have just been like one of those things that people put out there as a taster just to see what the feedback would be. I used to come and watch the Broncos when I played at the Valley. I was a big league fan, and it was quite good because you were treated quite differently. You could sit in the stand and have a beer and watch the game. The rules are different for rugby. But, I don't know much about, Wasps' home crowd, whether they would suddenly, bring in 2, 3, 4, 5,000, or whether the club would say if you've got a season ticket, you get half-price tickets or something. It's a stadium which needs to make money. So I'd rather, if they did want to do something, that they, put a concert on or something. But as for the rugby, I can't see it. And if it were Wasps, again, I think you've got to look at the long-term planning and go, we've got a lovely pitch. Would that affect us? Because I don't think, they'd be happy if we'd have to relay it halfway through a season, or, how our winters can get here and not be sort of like playable. We have to call games off, which would be embarrassing for a club of our nature. So, yeah, I think it was one of those ones. It was just a bit of like put out there just to get a tickle to see if anyone was interested and pick up some feedback for free. It's I can't see it, so I wouldn't start worrying about it now, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, as Sue points out, we've got the women's team at the Valley as well, so there is going to be a lot of games on that pitch anyway. Tom says if it brings more revenue to the club, then that's a positive. The only negative would be the lines on the pitch. Right, we're going to have a quick break. When we come back, it will be time to turn our attention to Saturday's home game with Rotherham.
PSF Steel Limited is a trade supplier of steel fabrication and erection services to the new build, construction and refurbishment market in southern England. With their unrivaled depth of experience, they excel at providing their customers with high quality and cost-effective steel fabrication solutions. Their customers include national and regional house builders, such as Barratt Homes, Bellway Homes, the Vistry Group and Taylor Wimpey. They pride themselves on their service-based ethos and commitment to customer service excellence, which includes full technical backup and on-site services and support. If you would like more information, go to www.psfsteel.co.uk. That's www.psfsteel.co.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the River. See you soon.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live. This is the big match preview, and the big match that we are previewing this week, of course, is the home one with the Millers, Rotherham United, coming down to the Valley on Saturday. Delighted to say now that we're joined by Matt from the New York Talk podcast. Good evening, Matt. How you doing, my friend?
I'm very, very good. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for coming on this evening to tell us a little bit about Rotherham United. How would you sort of assess your start to the season so far? Finally picked up your first win last time out against Huddersfield after your relegation last season. How have you sort of seen things so far?
It was very slow. Those first three league games, felt really long. After last season, we only won 5 games all last season. So coming into this season, you were kind of thinking, just win some games. You just want something to smile about, something to be happy about. And those first 3 games were really, really poor. Not what we expected. We expected to do something quite positive. And to be fair, up until around the 60th minute of the Huddersfield game, that was a little bit of a nothing game. But the last half an hour was really, really good. I'm hoping that can be a springboard to go forward. The first 3 games of the season were kind of, if you think of how Steve Evans' football is when it's bad, it's really, really ugly and really horrible and really bitter. And that's what it was like for those first 3 games. It was really, really tough to watch. I'm hoping he's kind of found a bit of a formula in that second half against Huddersfield, and we can hopefully kick on and finally start winning some games consecutively.
Obviously, Rotherham no strangers to kind of going between Championship and League One over the last few years. But what was the summer like? I was just looking through kind of your squad list. You got Sam Nombe, you got Clark Harris, you got Hugo, you got Wilkes, you got Andre Green. You know, players that have played up at the top level. Some good household names. I appreciate not all of them might have signed over this summer, but how are you feeling about the squad and the transfers that you've made?
We did well early. I think towards the end of May, we'd signed 7 or 8 players, and Clark Harris was one of them, and Rafferty and Raggett from Portsmouth, who just won the league. We signed we did some really good business early. I think since the end of July, we've signed kind of 2 players. We slowed up, and there's gaps in the squad for me. Like all those players you've named are brilliant. You know, they will be great at this level. But we've got one we've got one specialised right back who's been injured for 2.5 games. So that's been a problem. We're a little bit light at centre half. We put one of the centre halves on the transfer list in May. He's started all 4 games so far this season. So there are issues with it, which Evans he's dismissed really. He's dismissed the idea that we need more right backs because we've got people that can fill in. But so it was a great start. But I'm disappointed with how July and August, when he kind of said we're going to start fine-tuning, with 2 players isn't fine-tuning. One of those was we signed a guy from Stamford in the 7th tier, 7th or 8th tier. That's not fine-tuning your squad. So it didn't kind of work out as well as we hoped. Everybody else has had a great window, you know, good for promotion-wise. Birmingham spent loads of money. Everybody else have signed some really good players that you maybe didn't think they would. So having early on thought, right, we've got a good one here. It doesn't look as good, bearing in mind everybody else's business. But we've got players that have been there, done that, even higher than the League One. So hopefully they can kind of pull us through until January, when I'm sure Evans loves a signing. He loves a sign, so we'll definitely do some work in January done.
Hey, Matt. One of the things, Rotherham were one of the favourites mentioned at the start of the season. Do you prefer being one of that group of favourites, or would you rather be under the radar and then sort of do a nice long run towards the end of the season and going with momentum?
Rotherham always prefer being the underdog. I don't know why. It just suits us. The problem with our record in League One, we can't really be the underdog because everybody expects us to kind of be at the top end because of our record in the last 3 or 4 years. I think it helps in terms of Evans has kind of started to buy into the underdog theme with the money Birmingham sent, with the squad Huddersfield got, with your guys' start. He has started to play the underdog card a little bit, and that's what you need. Evans was really good at that. He did it at Stevenage. He did it his first time round. He's amazing at pulling the underdog card out. So I think if he can do that, he will. But if we go on a run now, and if we've got an amazing run and we're top at Christmas, then what's his tactic then in terms of motivation for the fans and whatnot? And that becomes a big challenge for him as a manager, which I'm not sold on. But we'll see.
Tell us about Steve Evans, the manager, then, because as fans of any other club in League One or any other club outside of Rotherham, basically, we all have our own opinions on him. I mean, we've all seen he's been in a position even this season whereby other clubs have been able to take the mick out of him because he's not shook hands or he's been a bit petulant at full time. I mean, I remember when him and Rayner went to Leeds, I thought, how can a club the size of Leeds be represented by someone this embarrassing? But he's also got results. I mean, how do Rotherham fans actually see him?
He's a very divisive figure, even within the club that he represents. The stuff at Exeter where he refused to shake hands, the Wickham one where he shook his hand but then had a go at him. It's not a great look. It just doesn't look good on the club. When he came in, I wasn't sure he was the right man. Steve Evans has a certain set of skills. I'm not sure starting with a team who are expecting to be challenged at top end, the right one is his set of skills. But it might be. There is a lot. Certainly after those first 3 games, he talks a big game, doesn't he, Steve Evans? He talks a really, really big game. And all over the summer, he'd been talking to us about how well we're going to be. We're going to be challenging for promotion, all this, that, and the other. And then the first 3 games were just as bad as they were. People really started to get frustrated with him because he just kept repeating the same things. Oh, we dominated. We laid siege to their goal. Well, we didn't. We all watched the game. We all see that didn't happen. So there is a lot of frustration. He's quite he's most divisive. Some fans love him, and the sun shines out of his backside, and all this. He's amazing. Then there's real people on the other side saying they hate him, can't stand him because of everything we've just mentioned. But if he gets us promoted and starts winning games, all that bad stuff disappears because we're winning those games again. But he has to win those games to keep fans on side, I think, especially when the second time round, the expectations are higher than they were first time as well.
Yeah, a couple of questions in the chat. I mean, Dean's one's only a joke, asking if he still dresses like a coach driver. But Tom's asking how Dylan Phillips has been getting on for Rotherham. So I was going through your sort of squad list earlier, and when we were chatting earlier, I mentioned you've got players that we've tried to sign previously. In basically your entire front 3 in Clark, Harris, Nombe and Wilkes, we seem to have either signed or tried to sign or had bids accepted for at one point or another. But obviously, yeah, Dylan played a massive part in our promotion 5 years ago and was very popular with us. How's he been getting on for you guys? Didn't really play much last season, but I think he started every game so far this year.
Yeah, he played just a couple of games and the last two games last season because Victor Johansson was in goal and Victor's just a great keeper. I'm surprised he started the first 3 games. We brought in Cam Dawson from Wednesday, who had got promoted with Sheffield Wednesday and had a really good season in League 2 Exeter. So we all kind of assumed that he is Evans' signing, so Evans is going to play him. But Phillips has come in and he's done all right. He made a couple of mistakes in pre-season, which made it even more surprising they got the nod on the opening day. He's a League One keeper. You know, he's got his limitations. His kicking and his distribution aren't very good, but he's a really, really good shot stopper. He commands the area quite well. He's good enough, is what I say. I don't think we're ever going to kind of fall in love with him, sadly. But that's maybe because of the keeper we had last time, because Victor was so good. But I'm happy with him there. He doesn't worry me too much because Evans isn't going to start playing out from back, so I ain't going to worry about his feet and things like that too much. But he's done okay, and I wouldn't go any higher than that though at this point.
Yeah, he had one very infamous bad moment with his feet for us actually at Wembley, which I suggest you have a look at 5 minutes into our playoff final against Sunderland, but all was forgotten and forgiven soon after because we still won the game, so it didn't matter. Right, I have 2 more questions. I mean, firstly, your away record is an absolute joke, unfortunately. It's a disgrace. You're just shy of 2 years without winning on the road. Last season, you picked up 4 points from a possible 69 away game on the road. Has that looked like changing at any time recently?
No. No. 669 days Saturday will be since our last away victory. It's just been really, really bad. And that's something you look at coming into this season, you think, right, Exeter away first game of the season. That's a really good opportunity to break that away record, and we didn't look like scoring. You then go away to Wickham and you're thinking they've had a tough start. This is a really, really good opportunity to break this away record. And again, we were rubbish, and Wickham probably deserved to win, or certainly deserved a draw. It's just been so tough. This last almost 2 years away games, it's been tough. We got beat 5-0 3 times away from home last season. I think there was a 4-1 in there as well. We weren't just losing; we were getting absolutely pummeled last year. It's been such a drag. And any Rotherham fan that's been to every single one of those away days needs a medal, because to keep going after those results is just just amazing. I don't expect to pick everything up Saturday, which, and we all know how football works. That probably means we will win because I'm not expecting it, and our record's so bad at your place that somehow it'll work. But when we do it, when we finally win, the fans that are there and the weight that we lift off the football club will be immense, because every time we have an away game, it's all we talk about. It's all we talk about. And as fans, and I'm sure Steve Evans and the players do, we still not won away from home. So it'll be a big moment if it is Saturday or whenever it'll be a big moment for the club when we finally get that monkey off us back.
Yeah, and just finally, I didn't know this until you mentioned this to me when we were chatting earlier, but Nathan Jones turned you guys down in December, so only a couple of months before he joined us, probably about a month after he got turned down for the Millwall job. So when he was out and about looking for work, I mean, how did the Rotherham fans feel about that? He was at games, he was pictured at games watching you. Did you feel disappointed when he left, and how have you viewed the job that he's done with us since?
Very disappointed. I felt like us and Nathan Jones was a bit of a match made in heaven. For me, it's a much better Steve Evans. There's a lot of similarities in where they do it. I think Nathan Jones has obviously done it at a much higher level. We did he came to watch us against Birmingham on the Saturday. We did a show on the podcast on the Sunday, and all the rumours were that it was a done deal. Nathan Jones is in. He's going to be announced Monday. So we're all sitting there getting really, really excited, talking about why it's a perfect marriage. And then Monday comes around, and it turns out he's turned us down. It's a shame. At the time we weren't so far adrift that it couldn't have been saved. So I think a guy like him coming in to get that instant sort of reaction would have been a good way of working together. But he didn't fancy the job. I think it's the stuff that we're a very kind of old-fashioned club in the way it's run in the background. It's done by the chairman. There's not really a director of football and this, that, and the other. I don't think he wanted to work with our chairman necessarily, where Steve Evans really likes him. I think that's all it was, to be honest. And we were rubbish last season, but that might play a small part. But then he's gone to you guys and done really, really well. I think we're talking only 3 games or whatever it is since February. He's done as well as I expected. I'll be honest, I'm surprised he came down to League One. It would have took a big club for him to go down to League One, which obviously you guys are. And if you can give Nathan Jones what he wants at this level, he can take you to the next level, and then he can take you to the next level of the next level. So I think it's a really, really, really smart appointment, a really ambitious appointment, and it's looking like it may end up working.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed it does. Matt, brilliant. Thanks for your time this evening. I'll let you go because I know you've got your own live stream coming up. So hope you have a good show this evening, and good to speak to you. And I'm sure we'll speak again later on in the season.
Absolutely. Cheers, fellas. Cheers.
There we go. That's Matt from the New York Talk podcast, who joined us to look ahead to Saturday's game from a Rotherham point of view. Well, let's look ahead to it from an Addicks point of view as well. Terry sat down with the Addicks boss, Nathan Jones, earlier on today to gear up for Saturday's game.
You said I did so on Saturday about falling below the standards you expect. It sort of happened pre-season, the Wimbledon game, and then we bounced back immediately after. Did you be expecting a similar sort of reaction?
Yeah, well, look, if we can have the same reaction as we did then we'll be delighted. So, but yeah, we need to, because it'll be a tough game on the weekend. We know that. We know what we could be coming up against. So we know we're going to have to be at our maximum, and if we're not, then teams punish you.
One thing that also came out Saturday was that we had 2 players that came down with illnesses. Has that settled down? Did it affect anyone else in the squad? Are we okay now? What's the situation?
Well, early on we did. It affected 1 or 2. We had a few, and that's why we cleared the building Monday. We had a split session on Tuesday, and then now everyone's back in and raring to go. So yeah, look, there was certain remnants of it, but where thankfully there wasn't a midweek game, and everyone's fit and raring to go today.
Well, in terms of the fitness issues, you confirmed before that Miles Lehman was back in full training to the squad. Would you, obviously as well as monitoring him in the training sessions, would you be looking to give him a run up maybe in the under 21s just to get him matched up?
Yeah, look, he's probably days, and that could be double figures in days, but he's more days than weeks away from actually playing in the game. So that's a good thing. We've got to be careful with him. We've got to push him now in training, get him to the levels where we feel we can expose him to a match, and then we'll have no fear in doing that.
And Alan Campbell was an unused sub at Reading. After another 4 weeks training, is he pushing for a starting?
Absolutely. It was all about it. Look, his volume hadn't been massive when he'd been at Luton. Obviously, the training, he lacked a match fitness, and then the training that he was doing, we felt we needed to probably give him another week. But he's an extremely fit, unbelievable pro anyway. So he can tolerate certain things more than others. But we just felt it was a bit early to put him into that game.
You were on record as saying that you wanted Saturday's game to go ahead, regardless of the international call-ups. Was that feeling magnified after what happened at Reading, to get back out on the pitch as quickly as possible?
Well, look, it's not as quickly as possible. It's like 7 days or 14. There's not a massive difference. No, look, what we don't want is a backlog of fixtures. If we feel we've got a squad capable here, and we have to trust the squad, so we can't have one or two go down, and then we say, well, okay, we want to pull out of that. Look, we'll be without Connor, we'll be without Roy Anderson, which are big misses for us because they're young, energetic players. But with the squad we have, we feel, providing we don't have a plethora of illness or injury in the next sort of 36 hours, we feel we have a squad that's capable of competing.
All games are tough, as you've mentioned, this in League One this season. On Saturday, we're up against a side that have just come down from the Championship, so they're sort of bookies' favourites to be one of the contenders to go straight back up. They seem to have the blueprint as well for getting out of League One. They've done it enough times. But so tough games, yes, but this one's going to have a bit of an edge to it all round, I think. Well,
look, it's always a keenly contested game, in terms of that. They are sort of, I think it's perennial promotion contenders from League One, and they'll be tough opposition. We know that, but every week is different. The Bolton one was different from the Reading one. The Reading was different from things. So that's what makes it so great about the league. It's a totally different test and a stern test, a real stern test. I watched them the other day lose to Wickham, and to be fair, they had the better chances. It could have gone the other way, and then obviously they beat Huddersfield, who were again one of the favourites to go up. So they're a good side. They have good players. They have a strong squad. Recruited heavily in the summer. So yeah, they'll be tough opposition.
There you go. That's Nathan looking ahead to the game on Saturday against Rotherham United at the Valley. Tom, how do we attack this one? The way we sort of play this season, like a very sort of distinctive style. But when we come up against sides at home, I guess, if we can get off to a fast start like we did against Bolton, that could really set the tone for the rest of the game.
Definitely, yeah. I think we've got to try and, as I said a little bit earlier, really, the reason we're playing this game, hopefully, is to try and catch them during a bad period. I was looking at their stats for this season so far, which I don't think are split between home and away, but defensively, they've got the lowest amount of fouls and the lowest amount of tackles. So they're not only not making tackles, they're not making good or bad, low on clearances as well. So we've just got to try and get forward as much as we can. I think somebody said it in the chat as well. They've got like the second highest XG and quite high on like big chances missed and stuff. So they create chances as well, but don't score them. So it's there for the taking, I think. I think the thing that concerns me slightly is kind of the way that they play. So obviously we don't like a lot of the ball, but neither do they. So is the ball just going to sit around in the middle of the pitch, or is it going to be hoof ball at either end? And I think if we do end up having more of the possession than perhaps we're used to, because we're the home side and we need to take it to them, can we stop just knocking it around the back, and can we really start to move through the thirds? So it's going to be interesting. But as I say, that they're not good defensively, and there's opportunities there if you can take them. I know we haven't scored a lot of goals yet, and maybe that's part of our problem. But yeah, I think we have to just go at them. We have to go at them and try and get something and sort of get our season, I was going to say back on track. That's unfair, but get back to winning ways as soon as we can, really. Yeah,
I don't want to get caught up too much in the fact that they seem to create a lot of chances, and we're a side that don't want to concede too many chances. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, Mark. But from our point of view, obvious question I'll start with then, who starts up top. I think that was one of the biggest conversation points that came out of Saturday. Is Gas and TC up top working? Obviously no Dan Carney on the bench because he's away, so that's not an option. But is there room for change there?
I think you have to. I know Gas does a lot of work, but it's for threat he carries, and I don't think he carries the same kind of threat as Godden. But I think if Nathan does change it, he's more likely to bring Godden in for TC, and thinking, with his plan in his head, if he's got Chucks on the bench, he can bring Chucks and TC on for half for like 30 minutes in the second half to run at them would be more effective than having Gas and Chucks come on together, where they might sort of like get in each other's ways. Possibly bring Campbell in as well, I'd have thought, because he's a disruptor. And Rotherham have got decent forwards. There's no denying that. And I think if we can stop the ball getting to them, and then we can take our own chances, that's what it has to come down to. So in the middle, possibly Coventry drops to the bench as well. Again, that's not a bad one to swap over to bring Coventry on. But I would definitely probably be going with Godden to start, possibly alongside Gas, because of his movement. I like Godden. He reminds me a bit with his movement. I'd said to somebody of the older Charlton fans, or Gary Nelson, the way he runs off a ball and runs off somebody, because Nelson used to run off Leeburn up front and, get the benefits from it. And I think Godden has got that movement. He's got the experience. He pulls off people's shoulders a bit better than TC can. So that's the change I'd probably make. Start Godden instead of TC and put Campbell on for Coventry. Everyone else as you were.
Yeah, I mean, Tom's saying TC and Godden. Gary says the same, Godden and TC up front. But Brazilian says, and I think I sort of leans to this, like Gassan maybe and Godden think TC might struggle against the Evans side. So I'm not saying drop TC, but I'm saying like if you were to have TC and Godden, I just don't know if there's that physicality up top, which I think we'll need pretty much every game because of the way we're going to play. But certainly maybe against a Rotherham side that on paper you'd imagine will be relatively physical in the middle of the park. So I mean, Luke Berry was off sick last week. Was sick but played, but then came off half time. Obviously, Karoy Anderson came on in his place, but again not here this week. So is there a possibility that, I mean, if Luke's still carrying a bit of that illness, if we might see Alan Campbell come in? Can they try and work him into that midfield three and see who he could sort of sit alongside in that role? I mean, is there a potential there for change?
That would be the only one. I think I can't see Coventry dropping yet. I think he's kind of playing himself into a role. I think he's been all right the first 4 games. And I don't think necessarily Campbell can do the defensive side as well. And Doherty's club captain. So I can't see him going anywhere either. So that would be the only one for me as far as I can tell. I'm pretty sure in the interview there, unless I misheard it, that Terry's question was, look, is he ready to start? And Nathan came back and said, yes, he is. So whether that is an insight into that's what he's thinking or just the way the question was worded, I don't know. But I can't see much change other than that in the middle, personally.
Yeah, I mean, Tom is saying that Terry Taylor could come on the bench. I mean, that might happen. It just doesn't feel like he's massively in the plans, does he? At the moment, Trevor's saying he wants Gas can run all day. He can wear the centre-backs down. Brazilian says it doesn't matter who starts up top if we can't put a decent ball into the box, my word. Well, we put one in last week, Tyrese's one, but that Gas didn't really attack on that far side. But yeah, and again, Buddy saying Coventry central defensive midfielder, Allen central midfielder, and Doc central attacking midfielder with Hadmay and TC up top. So there's certainly some opportunity there to see how Nathan Jones will mould this. I mean, he might try and stick with pretty much what he's had for so far. He hasn't made too many changes so far this season, so it'll be interesting to see how he does go on Saturday. Right, we've run out of time pretty much on this week's big match preview. Massive thanks to everyone who's joined us live on YouTube. I hope you have enjoyed the show. Don't forget, on Sunday, the women's team have their first league game of the season, and it is at the Valley, so check that out. It's Portsmouth, I think, coming down to SE7 this weekend, so have a look for that one. Check out our merch store as well, charltonlive.etsy.com, if you want to pick up one of our Charlton Live mugs with our old kits on them. Definitely worth a look. Sold another one today. A very, very proud day in the Mendez household there. I noticed when another one got bought earlier on today. Massive thank you then to everyone who's joined us, like I say, live in the YouTube chat or caught up via the podcast after. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you ever see the show. Tom and Mark, been an absolute pleasure to speak to you two today. Good to have you on.
Cheers both.
Thanks to Matt as well from the New York Talk pod, who joined us earlier on in the show as well. So I'm Louis Mendez. Thanks for listening to Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. We will be back on Sunday morning to look back at the game against Rotherham. We shall see you then.